Hi guys, it's Willow, and I'm back again with my second video in my series of creative writing lessons. Today I thought we would focus on character development. I hope you guys did last week's homework. I know I did. I started off doing a synopsis outline and I ended up doing an in-depth one, so it took me the whole week to do it. It was like 6 pages front and back to do. So I am well prepped and ready to go. And the reason why I wanted us to do this before we started writing is because writing a good character is crucial to your story. A good character can make a bad plot good, and a bad character can ruin a good plot. Of course, we want to write characters that don't fall too far into the cliche boundaries and feel real and unique to the reader. I think a little bit of that is unavoidable just because there are so many different types of cliches out there that it would be difficult to avoid all of them, but we want it to minimize as much as we can. In other words, we just want our characters to be deep and round instead of flat. In order to get a really good idea of how to write your character so that it feels like a real person, you need to understand how they think, feel, and speak. And this way it'll help our readers be able to connect with the characters and visualize themselves in the situations. A really good way to do this is to fill out a questionnaire for each of your characters, including your minor characters. So I looked around on the internet and found a list of 27 questions for you to ask yourself about your character and fill out. So we'll just jump right into that. First we have the basics, and that is name, age, appearance, personality, and speech. So do they talk with a southern accent? Do they talk with an English accent? Do they use big words or small words? And if you're writing in first person mode, this is especially important for your other characters because you won't know what the other characters are thinking, you'll just know what the first person character is. And a good way to know what's going on in their head is to hear the way that they speak and the things that they say. I'm always really picky about my character name. I don't know if it's just because I'm picky about names or because I feel like it has an effect on how people first view your character. It's kind of like the first impression. And for their personality, you want to know, are they upbeat? Are they gloomy? Do they have a big heart? Are they cold-hearted? Basically the general vibe that would be what other characters would describe them. Now we're going to ask some questions to get into their head and underneath that first initial layer that your readers will be introduced to. Do they have any relatives, and what are their relationships with their relatives? Do they have an estranged father or a nurturing mother? Maybe some siblings, some cousins even, or an uncle that raised them? Who knows? And what makes them unique? What is the thing that sets them apart from other characters? Why are you writing about this character instead of another character? And what's going to grab your reader's attention about them? What's going to make them want to know more? Who depends on them? Do they have a friend that is being bullied and they're the only one that will stick up for them? Or a little sister that looks up to them? What are their external motivations? In other words, what is happening around them that they react to? So this would be the outside forces driving your plot from the perspective of each character that you fill this out for. What is their internal motivations and goals? What drives your character? What makes them want to fight the external motivation? What makes them tick? And what do they want to accomplish by the end of your book? This is a very devious question, and it is, what would break them? I think that gives a pretty good insight into your character. If something frivolous would break them, that would kind of imply that they're a weaker character. And by weaker, I mean less strong-willed. They really care about somebody and their death would maybe destroy them, and that's a good idea to play around with because it may be something you might consider adding into your book. What are they in denial about? We all have something that we're, I think, in denial about at least a little bit, and that can be that maybe this other character is actually a bad guy but they want to believe that they're good. Maybe they're in denial that they're going to be able to accomplish what they can. Maybe they don't think that they are good enough, and they are. What choices have they put themselves into this situation with? And that is not the external motivation, it is what have they done to bring themselves to this situation that they chose to do. It can be as little as opening a door to a black-eyed child, or deciding to take a left that night instead of a right, or even as big as choosing to live this way or choosing to love this person. And what circumstances can't they control? So what is out of their control that is happening around them? Did someone break into their apartment and steal their magic locket or something? Did a twister come and knock out their whole town? Their quirks and bad habits are next. And that is even as little as saying like a lot, or having the habit of twirling their hair. Do they smoke a pipe? Do they walk with a limp? Do they have a saying that they use a lot? And another one that is harder for people to ask themselves and more common for people to overlook for their main character is, what is their greatest flaw or their hubris? And it's like how Achilles had that weak spot in his heel, or maybe your character can be very cold-hearted, or maybe they're too trusting, or just something that could possibly be their undoing. What is their closest relationship? Do they have a boyfriend and that's the person they're most connected to? Do they feel most connected to their grandmother or their mother or their best friend? And that's important because then you know how they may respond to things that that other character may say to them or do with them. And it also helps you get in their head a little bit more to understand their motivations. And who is their arch enemy? And this does not have to be a person. It can also be an idea or something that they really hate that is almost the opposite of what they stand for, or the biggest obstacle in their way. What is their biggest fear? And that can include phobias and something even deeper like losing their scholarship or being rejected. What is their biggest regret? And this is slightly different than their biggest flaw because this is something that they've done. Have they failed to protect their loved one, or maybe they've stolen something or lied? And if they have a phobia like heights, explain why. What is going to be their lowest point in your book? Maybe that's the beginning. Maybe they start off with a crummy job they hate and they end up being a wizard. Or it can be something that happens to them. Maybe they start off a millionaire and they go broke. But I think it's important to make your character feel more round for them to have a low point. And then you're also going to write their high point so that you can see sort of their journey. Maybe they win the lottery, or it can even just be finally accomplishing their goal. Do they have an obsession? And this can go for good characters and bad characters. Maybe your character is a good guy but he's really by the book and he's obsessed with following the rules, or maybe you have a bad guy and he's really obsessed with power or obsessed with obtaining this thing that your character has. What makes your character angry? And what makes your character happy? And these are both important. They're good to take into account whenever you're trying to decide how they may react to different situations. And really you could go through the whole list of emotions to figure that out. Maybe they have a pet peeve that they just really hate when someone bites their nails, or maybe for me at least, I can't stand when someone picks on somebody I care about. And that makes me really angry. Maybe they're like that. How do they change in your book? Maybe they start off being really shy and at the end they find their voice, or maybe they start off cold-hearted and end up being in love and soft-hearted, or maybe they learn to loosen up a little bit. It all depends on your character's journey through the book. And then lastly, I want you to add one additional detail, and this can be anything or just something you don't want to forget about your character. You could add, if you're writing a fantasy, maybe their race, are they like an orc or an elf, or if they have magical powers, you can list what they can do there. Just, that's a good space to fill in anything that wasn't covered in the questionnaire that needs to be. my grumpy kitty decided to steal my spot while I was uploading the footage that I had to my computer, so you guys would not believe what I had to go through to get back to. But that is it for my character questionnaire. Let me know down below if you have any questions you usually ask yourself about your characters, or something you think would be more insightful to put onto the list. And it is really important because you can literally write a whole book about a character's personality, or at least around it. So I would definitely encourage you not to skimp out on this week's homework and to fill out a questionnaire of your own using either my questions or your own. Next time, I think I'm going to go over the different points of view that you can write in and the advantages or disadvantages of all of them. I'm having a lot of fun filming these for you guys. Writing is absolutely one of my passions, so it's fun to be able to share that with you guys. Let me know down below if you have done your homework and if you have decided to write your own novel, and any notes that you have for me. I would love to hear about each of your ideas and your books and your stories. But in the meantime, do that homework, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.